Never stop reading Bible. All right, let's jump right into one of the shortest, but maybe one of the most intense books in the New Testament, the book of Jude. It's this super brief letter, but wow, it packs a serious punch. And its message feels surprisingly modern, especially when you think about communities dealing with problems from the inside.
So let me ask you this. What happens when the biggest threat to a group, a church, a movement, any community, doesn't come from some external enemy, but from within, from inside its own ranks? That's the exact high-stakes crisis that this ancient letter is all about.
So to really get why this letter is so intense, we got to look at the guy who wrote it, Jude. Now, he tells us he's the brother of James, and get this, he actually sat down to write a totally different kind of letter, but something happened. A crisis hit, and he had to scrap his original idea and change course, fast.
Yeah, his first plan, it was all positive vibes. He wanted to write this really joyful, encouraging letter, just celebrating the amazing salvation and the core beliefs that held their community together. It was supposed to be all about unity.
But that plan went right out the window. An incredibly urgent problem popped up. It turns out some people had secretly slipped into the church, and Jude realized he had to deal with this, like right now. So his whole mission flipped from celebration to straight-up confrontation. So what was this threat exactly? Well, these weren't just folks with slightly different opinions. No, Jude paints a much more serious picture. He says they were doing two really destructive things. First, they were denying the authority of Christ himself. And second, they were pushing for moral corruption. They were twisting this beautiful idea of grace and turning it into a free pass to do whatever they wanted. They were basically saying, hey, we're saved, so our actions don't matter anymore. And you can see how that kind of thinking could completely poison a community from the inside out.
So, how does Jude argue his point? I mean, he doesn't just throw out accusations. Instead, he becomes a bit of a historian. He reaches back into the past and pulls out 5 powerful, hard-hitting examples to prove that this kind of rebellion, well, it never ends well.
And he uses stories his audience would have known by heart. He's like, remember the Israelites in the wilderness? God saved them from Egypt, but they still faced consequences for their unbelief. Then he points to the fallen angels, and of course, the total destruction of Sodom and Gomorrah. He even brings up Cain and Balaam, these classic examples of what happens when selfishness and greed take over. See the pattern here? Every single story hammers home this same point. It doesn't matter who you are or what group you're a part of. Nobody gets a free pass when it comes to corruption. What Jude's doing here is building a completely airtight case. He's showing this clear, undeniable pattern from history. His message is crystal clear. Hey, this stuff you're seeing, it's not new, and God has always held people accountable for it. For Jude, judgment isn't a possibility, it's an absolute certainty.
Okay, but this letter isn't all doom and gloom, not at all. After laying out the problem so clearly, Jude totally shifts gears. He gives them a positive, practical game plan. A blueprint, really, for how to stand strong and protect themselves.
And this is really the heart of his advice. It boils down to 3 key things. First, he says you've got to build yourselves up on your faith. That means really knowing what you believe and making that foundation rock solid. Second, stay connected to God through prayer. Simple, right? But crucial. And third, live a faithful life, always keeping your eyes on the mercy of Christ. It's basically a strategy for spiritual self-defense, a way to stay strong from the inside. And that brings us to the letter's big finish, its final, powerful theme. Because Jude doesn't just leave everyone stewing in the middle of a fight. No, he lifts their gaze up from the immediate problem and points them toward the future, toward the ultimate reason for their hope. He tells them to look forward to Christ's return, not with dread, but with genuine hope. Because that, he says, is when real, final justice will happen. It's a brilliant move, really. It reframes their whole struggle. It's like he's saying, what you're going through right now, it's temporary, and there's a guaranteed amazing resolution coming. So when you boil it all down, the book of Jude is this incredibly dynamic, timeless call to action. It's a passionate plea to defend the faith you've been given, but it's also a call to build up your own life on that solid foundation of faith, prayer, and an unbreakable hope in a future where things are made right. And that's our look at this short but incredibly potent letter. The source analysis for this explainer was provided by the Center Studio.